Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. I just got back from Smoothie King Center, where the Lakers beat the New Orleans Pelicans 110-106 in the 7-8 play-in game to secure the number 7 seed and advance to the playoffs, where they will play the number 2 defending champion Denver Nuggets in a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. This was a roller coaster game for LA. It was close early. Then LeBron went out. New Orleans went on a run to go up by 8 at the end of the first. They were up by 10 early in the second. Then LA goes on this giant run, closes the quarter, outscoring the Pelicans 34-14, go into halftime with a 10-point lead. Pelicans slowly chip away at the lead later in the third, and then eventually tie the game in the fourth quarter. It looks like the Lakers are about to blow the game and go back to LA, preparing for a Friday matchup with either the Kings or the Warriors. Would have ended up being the Kings, given that they beat the Warriors tonight. But then D'Angelo Russell makes a big three. AD gets a key offensive rebound, makes a couple free throws, and the Lakers hold on. They survive. They finish the season 4-1 against the Pelicans. They win back-to-back games on the road in a playoff-like setting, something they weren't able to do last season in Memphis or in Golden State. And now they get the matchup that people were telling them they should have ducked with the Denver Nuggets. And they are confident going into that matchup with their offense, with the rotation, with winning 12 of their last 15 games. LA is in a good place and believes they have a shot against the Nuggets. Quickly, before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to my channel. I upload post-game reactions after every game. I'm posting 2 episodes of my podcast, Buha's Block, a week. This week, we are doing 3 episodes. It would mean a lot if you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, like this video, drop the comment. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your podcast platform of choice, it would mean a lot if you followed, downloaded, and left a 5-star review. All right, you guys know the drill. We're going to go through some of the numbers of the game and then hit our 3 takeaways. So Anthony Davis entered this game as questionable. Darvin Ham said pregame he had to go through his pregame routine, and Davis was cleared about 45 minutes or so before tip-off when the Lakers made the announcement that he was playing. And he admitted after the game that he was a bit hindered by his back spasms. He still felt it during the game. His back was sore, his mobility was limited, and it didn't necessarily reflect in his numbers. 20 points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1 steal, but he was inefficient from the floor, which is rare for AD. Shot just 6 of 16, missed several point blank shots that he typically makes. He missed several layups, got blocked by Jose Alvarado. Just didn't have the typical lift and explosion that he normally has, but still made some big plays down the stretch. Had that offensive rebound that led to 2 free throws that essentially sealed the game after D'Angelo Russell's shot that put the Lakers up by 4. He also had an alley-oop from Austin right before that. And just again, 20 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 blocks is an off night, that shows you the standard for Anthony Davis. And I know there are going to be some people that criticize the performance or look at the shooting or him missing certain shots, but this guy gutted this one out. He could have sat this game out and said, I'll just play on Friday or if we win, over the weekend. And he played, and he gave the Lakers 40 minutes. And no, he was not quite himself on either end. Zion was scoring a lot on him. Like AD was not the typical AD on either end of the floor. But still, when it counted most, he made several big plays, was still a presence inside, especially once Zion exited with about 3 minutes left. And I think all things considered, this was a solid AD game given the circumstances. LeBron also struggled from the floor, 23 points, just 6 of 20 shooting, 1 for 5 on threes, was just 1 for 8 in the fourth quarter. And I thought he was settling a lot, taking contested jumpers, fadeaways, turnarounds, and just didn't have a good rhythm in the fourth quarter. He partly made up for it with 9 rebounds and 9 assists. Did also have 3 steals and 2 blocks. Does a really good job of playing the passing lanes against the Pelicans and just reading their offense and intercepting plays before they happen. He was 10 for 10 from the free throw line, though, for a guy who's often in like the low to mid 70s from a free throw shooting perspective. perspective, that's a really good performance. And I thought defensively, he took on the Zion challenge well. He was largely trying to do the right things, and he just was exhausted in the fourth quarter. And that was a theme for the Lakers. Like, they were just gassed, playing playoff minutes for the second time in a couple days. Like, minutes wise, again, AD was at 40, LeBron was at 41, D'Lo was at 37, Austin was at 36, Rui was at 33. So some heavy minutes for the starters in particular. And I thought you saw that with their legs and their defense and just their general energy and activity in the fourth quarter as New Orleans made their run. D'Lo had 21 points and 6 assists. He had a huge first quarter with 13 points and 4 assists, keeping the Lakers in it as LeBron and AD were struggling a bit to finish around the basket. I went back and watched all the starters' field goal attempts, and LeBron and AD were just missing, especially LeBron. Like, he had several open layups that he missed, and part of it was like guys poking the ball away on drives and him kind of losing his balance. But like, LeBron did not have a typical LeBron game from a finishing perspective, but D'Lo made up for that early with those 13 points and 4 assists, and then he hit the dagger in front of the Pelicans bench, made sure to trash talk them as well, pointed at them, was getting into it with Jose Alvarado. Those two got double techs in the second quarter, and D'Lo was talking to the crowd, he was talking to the bench, and he was really fired up for this game. Austin Reeves had 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Just has a knack for making big plays. Had the alley-oop to AD, hit a couple of key free throws late, and just continues to, like, didn't shoot the ball particularly well, like was 5 for 11. Several shots were short for Austin, but got to the free throw line 4 times, and just he's a gamer, and he was defending CJ McCollum, helped limit him to 4 for 15 shooting alongside Gabe Vincent. And Austin continues to play pretty good two-way basketball. Rui had an efficient 13 points on 5 for 6 shooting. He exploited New Orleans, often switching guards onto him by ducking in and sealing or making wide open shots. He had a couple pull-up shots. He took on the Zion assignment, took a lot of abuse, a lot of absorbing his drives. Zion took 27 shots in this one. Most of them were against LeBron and Rui, but Rui really took on that challenge in the second half, especially, and tried to stay in front of Zion as best he could. LA went with a tighter bench in this one, so I mentioned the heavy minutes for the starters. Taurean Prince still played 22 minutes, 18 for Gabe Vincent, so he usurped Spencer Dinwiddie in the rotation. Spencer only played 5 minutes. He had a bad shift and didn't go back into the game after that. The Lakers were a team worst -9 in Spencer's minutes. Taurean Prince had 6 points, 4 rebounds, a steal, and a block. The steal and the block coming against Zion. The Lakers put him on Zion for a couple stretches in this game. I did not really understand it, given Zion has a good 50, 60, 70 pounds. I'm not quite sure the amount on Taurean, and just blew right through him. One time scored on him, one time drew a foul, but Taurean ripped the ball from him and blocked him one time. So Taurean continues to be a respectable role player. The real story off the bench, though, was Gabe, who hit a couple of threes. The first time he has hit 2 threes in a game since the NBA Finals. So that's 10 months ago. And obviously he missed a lot of time with injuries, but 9 points, 4 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and he was the main culprit in limiting CJ McCollum and just chasing him around screens, forcing him into tough shots, poking his dribbles away, poking the ball away, just being a pest defensively. And this was a game that showed why the Lakers pursued Gabe Vincent last offseason, why it is a what if of the season in terms of what if he had been healthy and how much better would the team have been? How would some of their problems been solved just by having a guy like Gabe Vincent? But he's played really solid lately. He's starting to regain his confidence. And if he can make open threes and be that catch and shoot threat that the Lakers wanted him to be, like, the defense is already there. And I think that's a guy that has a legit role. So I had previously talked about him maybe being phased out of the rotation, but I'm starting to change that opinion. I think it's maybe a hot hand situation between him and Spencer. I would throw Taurean in there. I don't think he should have a locked-in role. I would still have Spencer and Gabe ahead of Taurean in the pecking order. It's not how it's been in the 2 New Orleans games. Taurean has been the 6th man, essentially. I would lean more toward Gabe and Spencer, but the Lakers are in a good spot in terms of the rotation overall. They are playing the starters a lot. They are closing with them. And I think this has been the best stretch of the rotation and lineups for several weeks now. As I mentioned earlier, Zion Williamson bounced back from his 12-point, 4 for 13 shooting performance in the regular season finale with 40 points and 11 rebounds, 5 assists. He made 17 of 27 shots, 6 of 9 free throws, though he did exit early with a leg injury late in the fourth quarter. And that was a bummer. Not a bummer for the Lakers, but just a bummer for the game. And Zion had been playing so well that you wanted to see an exciting finish, and that did deflate the experience a little bit. Brandon Ingram had an off night and was benched for most of the fourth quarter, just 11 points on 4 for 12 shooting. And CJ McCollum had a real off night, just 9 points on 4 for 15 shooting. So LA holding those two to a combined 8 of 27 and 20 points. Like, that's partly the game right there. LA's perimeter defenders continue to do a really good job, especially if they are facing a team that doesn't necessarily have that top end athleticism on the perimeter. And that's one thing with the Pelicans. Like, they have a lot of length and they have some good size on the perimeter, but none of those guys are like a De'Aaron Fox or a Donovan Mitchell or an Anthony Edwards in terms of like their athleticism and explosion. With BI, it's a lot of ISOing and taking contested pull-up jumpers. With CJ, it's a lot of tough jumpers, and those guys were just off tonight, but that was also partly the collection of Austin and Gabe and Spencer and Torian, Rui, even D'Lo had some nice defensive possessions. So an all-around good and sometimes even great defensive performance by LA's perimeter group. Not as much in the fourth quarter as the Pelicans started to get downhill a lot, get a bunch of layups, get some threes, but I think a lot of that was just exhaustion and LA being absolutely gassed. And they have 3 days now to prepare for Denver. Okay, so let's get into our takeaways. Takeaway number 1 for me is grit and grind. And that's obviously a play on the Memphis Grizzlies and their old slogan. But this was a gritty and gutsy win from LA. They grinded it out. It was ugly, it was sloppy, it was messy. Their offense ground to a halt in the fourth quarter. They got stagnant. They were struggling with the Pelicans trapping and blitzing, swarming, zoning up certain parts of the floor at times. And LA just settled a lot. Going back and looking at the shot attempts, like LeBron, again, 1 for 8 in the fourth, was settling for jumpers. D'Lo, Austin, like they went through different phases of those guys settling. AD couldn't buy a bucket in the paint. And they were getting to the free throw line, and that was keeping the offense going. But then you contrast that with Zion Williamson relentlessly getting downhill, the Pelicans getting out in transition, pushing the pace, playing with more force and physicality throughout this game in general, but especially in that fourth quarter as they made their rally. And the Lakers barely held on, but they held on, and the supporting cast stepped up. D'Lo with his first quarter and then making the dagger 3. Austin taking on the CJ assignment and battling for boards. Rui taking on both the Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson assignments. Gabe Vincent stepping up and hitting threes and pestering CJ McCollum. And then there was LeBron and AD, with AD getting the alley-oop, the offensive rebound, the free throws, LeBron hitting a clutch jumper late. So this was an overall team effort, which has been the way that LA has been winning lately for the most part. And the bench is giving them just enough. I think the rotations have made more sense. The Lakers are staying big with at least 2 of LeBron, Rui, AD, and Jackson on the floor at all times, which makes sense. And the still some 3-guard lineups, but I'm more okay with that if you have a couple bigs out there. But in the playoffs, you have to win ugly. You have to figure out how to hold on and survive a run, especially in a hostile road environment, which it was a pretty dead crowd. Like, there were some good moments in the first quarter, some good moments through like the first 3 quarters, but then it really got crazy in the fourth quarter as the Pelicans were making a comeback, as they tied the game, and Zion's dunking, and the crowd's just going wild. And LA getting that experience of winning twice in that type of environment going into Denver, which promises to be that times 10. And they've got their DJ who's yelling and playing music throughout the game, and the whole elevation thing, and like that's one of the toughest places to play in the NBA. So getting this experience of playing in Memphis, playing in New Orleans, a couple games, like going into the Denver game. LA's on essentially a 5-game road trip. They're going to return to LA for like a day and a half and then leave Thursday afternoon to Denver to get acclimated to the altitude and to get a practice in Friday before Saturday night's game. So there were certainly some things to be concerned about, but I think in general, given the context of AD's back spasms and LA just being exhausted, I'm not absolving them of some of the poor play in the fourth quarter, some of the turnovers, some of the bad shots, some of the poor point of attack defense and poor backline rotations and not rebounding. And like there's a lot that went wrong in the final like 14, 15 minutes of this game. But the fact that LA had built itself such a large cushion prior to that point and the margin for error, it wasn't like it was a close game and then this spiraled into a New Orleans blowout or a New Orleans win, right? So LA held on, which is what counts. In the playoffs, it doesn't matter how you win. Like LeBron said it after the game. In the playoffs, it's throw the percentages out, throw everything out. It's about, do you win the game or not? And did you find a way to win? And LA found a way to win this one. Takeaway number 2 is tonight showed why the Lakers should not have ducked the Denver Nuggets. And let me explain. So one, Anthony Davis is still dealing with these back spasms. And had the Lakers lost this game, he would have had a 2-day turnaround to have to play Friday and then play game 1 if the Lakers won on Sunday. And that would have been a grueling physical process for him. There's no telling if he would have been physically right by Friday, or maybe things get worse. Obviously, we'll see game 1 on Saturday, what state he's in. He said he expects to be 100% by then, but back spasms are tricky injuries. They can rear up at any time. It just takes one wrong hit in the back, one wrong movement, and you could trigger that. And maybe they could have rested him tonight and he would have been fine by Friday's matchup if the Lakers wanted to go that way. But I think the uncertainty with AD and his back and making him have to play a day earlier than he is now, and then playing 2 days after that, 2 physical, important, intense games in a 3-day span. That's a lot to ask of a guy who is dealing with a back situation. So I think the Lakers taking care of business and now having Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to rest AD, to let his back recover and get massages and treatments and all the stuff that he's been doing for the last 48 hours. That's important. So that's one thing. Like I think you're leaving too much to chance, especially when AD has exited 3 games early in the past month. You do not want to risk that in a single elimination game on Friday. And then number 2, the Kings just won. And the Kings are a team that has swept the Lakers in the season series. They still have De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. No, they have not been the same team without Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, but they have given the Lakers fits for the past couple of years. They swept the season series this year. They won it 3-1 last year. So overall, they've won 7 of 8 against LA. And yes, you can make a similar case against playing the Nuggets, who've won 8 in a row against LA. But the risk in playing the Kings at home would have been your season is on the line. And we know Domantas Sabonis plays a physical brand of basketball. He would have been banging with AD in the paint. That might have triggered the back situation. So the Lakers losing this game, I think, would have been disastrous and really put their season on the line on Friday with a Kings team coming off a blowout win against the Warriors and coming in with a lot of confidence against the Lakers, even without a couple of key rotation guys. And then the Lakers having blown a lead, hypothetically, to the Pelicans, right? And then coming in with an AD still dealing with his back situation, that would have been a risky proposition. So I think LA approaching this game with the requisite energy and effort and focus to take care of business, to really put this game away in the second quarter. They were ahead the rest of the way outside of a couple stretches in the fourth when it was tied. That was big, and it got the Lakers a playoff spot. And no, playing Denver is not ideal, but the Lakers are in the playoffs, and once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. And finally, in takeaway number 3, I'm going to give some quick thoughts on the Denver series. So I've talked about my theory on how to defend the Nuggets in crunch time in terms of matchups. I think the Lakers need to put LeBron and AD on Murray and Jokic. So LeBron on Murray, AD on Jokic, and just switch it, because those are the only 2 guys on the roster that have a conceivable ability to defend both guys. Like if Jared Vanderbilt returns, let's just say during this series, he can't guard Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic will just take him in the post and shoot a little floater hook shot over him. Rui Hachimura can't guard Jamal Murray. He will dance with him and get by him, or just create separation to get a jumper up. Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Gabe Vincent, those guys cannot switch onto Jokic. Cam Reddish can't switch onto Jokic. We saw what happened in that last matchup. Forgot if it was the last matchup or 2 matchups ago. I think it was the last matchup where he scored over him. Like Taurean Prince, same thing. So really the only 3 guys the Lakers have that can defend Jokic or have any shot at slowing him down are Rui, LeBron, and AD. And of those 3 guys, the only 2 that can switch onto Murray and contain him are AD and LeBron. So that's why I think you got to go with those 2 guys. Then I think you should put Rui on Aaron Gordon and match his physicality with Rui's physicality. Gordon is bigger and stronger, but I think that's as close as it's going to get. I think Austin Reeves should be on KCP. And then you don't have a great matchup for MPJ. Ideally, it would be Jared Vanderbilt. I think you probably have to go Spencer. I don't think you go Taurean. MPJ has lit Taurean up during the regular season. Gabe's too small. Jackson isn't a good enough perimeter defender. Not a lot of great options there. D'Lo, too small. So I think you probably go Spencer. Now, I touched on this. I have a mailbag coming out tomorrow, and I touch on this Denver defense question, so I don't want to spoil it too much. I go into greater detail, and I do say Spencer in that one, though he just got benched. It only played 5 minutes, so we'll see how big of a factor he even is in the Denver series. I don't know like what they do with MPJ because I don't think it's Rui. I don't think his defensive awareness and screen navigation is at a high enough level. And the MPJ factor is like, to me, maybe the X factor of the series of like, he's always killed the Lakers and they just have not had a great answer for someone with the requisite size to contest him and hang with him and even bother him like a little bit. Like it is Vando, but I think the Lakers are going to want to deploy Vando on Jamal, and we don't even know if Vando's coming back this series. So a lot of unknowns on the defensive side. Also, I don't know where D'Angelo Russell fits in. Like if you're going with the starters, I guess you put D'Lo on KCP, but then that means you're putting Austin on Jamal, and now you can't switch the Jokic Murray 2-man game, and that creates a lot of problems if you can't keep those 2 guys in front of you. So how LA approaches it with I think they're going to stick with the starters, obviously, as they should, but in terms of like adjusting and figuring out the optimal way to defend them in crunch time, I think it's probably Spencer defending MPJ and just staying in his jersey and not letting him get open. Like that's the one guy you don't help off of. Like even KCP, who's also an above average 3-point shooter, you can help off him. But like MPJ is a top 10 shooter in the NBA, and you do not want to help off that guy, let him get hot. And then you got to switch to LeBron. I mean, you got to switch the Jokic Murray 2-man game with LeBron and AD, try and keep them in front of them. And if they're going to hit moon balls over LeBron or AD, and like these tough shots that they make, like so be it, right? Like you can't take away everything defensively, and you can't stop that. Like if they're going to get to those shots, they're going to get to those shots. And when Jokic throws up a prayer over AD and it swishes in, like that's just better offense against good defense. And that there's nothing the Lakers can do about that. I will say this is a sort of a tough series to predict because the Lakers have been in such a good rhythm over the last couple months. They had the 4th best record in the Western Conference after February 1st, behind just the Nuggets, Mavericks, and Thunder. And they were a loss behind the Mavericks and Thunder and a couple losses behind the Nuggets. So like they were right there as arguably the best team in the Western Conference over the final 2.5 months of the regular season. And obviously the Nuggets have had their number, but Lakers only played them really once with this sort of rotation. That was an early March game. And so Spencer played in that one, but they didn't have Gabe for that one. And I feel like they were a little bit more up and down at that point in the season. Like really the last month of the season is where they solidified things and became the team that they've looked like, winning 12 of the last 15. So we've only seen one matchup with these 2 teams with the current Lakers starting lineup. And that was the best the Lakers have looked, arguably in any of the 8 games against the Nuggets. So like, I think there is some reason for optimism with the way the Lakers are playing, with the way that that unit is gelling. I do have some defensive concerns in terms of how they match up with the Nuggets in crunch time and just in general in the starter minutes, especially in Denver, because remember, LA only played once in Denver. That was on opening night. But I think LA's offense is going to be able to keep them in games. And it's really going to come down to, can they continue to execute in the last 5-6 minutes? And can they find a way to at least slow down Denver's offense and not let them get whatever they want the way that they typically do in crunch time? But to me, like, LeBron had a quote about it post-game. I asked LeBron post-game, I was like, what are your preliminary thoughts on this matchup? And he said essentially that if both teams are playing to their ceiling, it's going to come down to the last possession or two, and it's going to be about who executes. And that's the same way I feel. At the same time, like, Denver has a track record of not only against the Lakers, but against the rest of the league. Like, both of their games against the Celtics went down to crunch time, and they out-executed the Celtics in crunch time. Like, that's what Denver does. They're one of the best crunch time teams in the league, if not the best, just given the stakes and given their track record. And I know the Lakers have a really impressive, they were technically the best team in the clutch this season, but not against the Nuggets. And the Nuggets, I forgot off the top of my head, but I think they have like a 144 or something offensive rating against the Lakers in crunch time this season, which is just absurd. And LA has to figure out a way to slow them down. Otherwise, this is going to be a short series. So as far as a prediction, I'm in between right now, Nuggets in 5, Nuggets in 6. I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but I'm being honest. I'm starting to lean more towards Nuggets in 6. I want to go through some of the film, some of the numbers, especially want to rewatch that last game in March. I'm going to rewatch all the games, but going through crunch time, going through the March game in depth and really taking notes on that and how LA matched up and how they were able to bother. I think KCP missed the last couple matchups, which is notable. He's Denver's fifth best player in that starting lineup and has also killed the Lakers at times over this 8-game win streak. But Lakers, again, didn't have Gabe Vincent. They didn't have Jared Vanderbilt. We'll see if he returns. So a lot of questions entering this one. I will have an in-depth preview on this channel. I will also have an in-depth preview on The Athletic. So look for those potentially Thursday, more likely Friday. But that will do it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please be sure to follow and leave a 5-star review. I have the mailbag going up Wednesday morning, and then I will be back on either Thursday or Friday with my official Nuggets preview. So be on the lookout for that. I will talk to you soon.